Okay, hey Todd. Hey buddy, so I've been studying your swing here this morning a bit, and there's no question you're an athlete. Um, you're strong, strong legs, strong upper body. Tell you lifted some weights. So in terms of compression, I really like what I'm seeing. Now I see all the same stuff you're looking at. Kind of going back, takeaways really good. Up to P3 is pretty good. Then the elbows start to separate. And this is, pretty common. We see this in guys that are a little bit, more toward the like bulky side, not like less toward the flexible side of things. So, the club gets a little bit, I guess, across the line up here. Right elbow flies a little bit. But you know who else did that? Jack Nicklaus did that. So these aren't bad things per se. We just got to make sure we're matched up a little bit better because it looks to me like, I really like where you are up here. One of the things Nicholas said was, I always want the club in the address position throughout the swing. So always having the club kind of between the arms is a positive thing for sure. So the one thing that happens is we have to start to look at, okay, how much depth do we have? So the depth we'd measure in this way. So a deeper swing would have, like a Kuchar or someone like that would have the butt of the club back over here behind your right heel. But a guy like Nicholas would have the club more upright. So you can see here that the butt of the club is about at the ball of your foot. The problem is with when you're a little more upright, you're going to have to feel some different elements coming down. It's just tough to get. You do a good job of kind of keeping the left shoulder down in transition, and this is partially why you compress it so well. You keep the left shoulder down, but when you get to P5 here, your alignments are pretty out. So anytime I say out, I mean in this direction. Anytime I say in, I would mean in this direction. And so out compared to what? In compared to what? I'll show you that today when I get on camera. But this is definitely going to cause a situation where if the left arm is parallel to your baseline at P5 and the shaft plane's a little steep, a little steep, it's really not that steep, then it's going to cause you to have to start your release a little bit earlier. So you start to really have to release it from P5 to P7, which is totally okay. It just causes you to get a little jammed up because you're trying to swing over here to the left. And so I think with where your swing positions are, you would actually have, it would actually be more beneficial for you to have your path a little bit into out. I'll talk about this when I get on camera, but because your alignments are going to be a little bit too steep to swing to the left. And what I mean by that is when you get up here to the top, the first thing is if this left arm is higher than the shoulder plane, then if you use rotation, it's really easy to get the left arm very out at P5. So that's the first thing that would cause the club to get too out, would be the left arm alignment at the top of the backswing. So you're going to want to feel a little less rotary in terms of the body. It's going to feel like your arm swing is what squares up your shoulders. And then with how you're coming into impact, we'll have to get depth from somewhere. Or we're going to need you to start to swing a little bit less to left field. Because when you get through and out of impact, So you get to here in a steep position, then that causes you to have to uncock everything right there. And so what happens is, because the club's getting thrown a little early, things get a little jammed up here at P8. So you really shouldn't be trying to swing to the left. These arms should be extending more away from you, and you should be trying to shoot the ball more down the line or slightly from the inside. So I'm going to show you how this works today on camera a little bit, just as a reference point. And let me pull in. And now I know, I mean, it takes a lifetime to swing as good as this guy, Mac O'Grady, but I use him as a reference point because he's got a lot of it right, if not all of it right. So this line that I drew through the ball, you can call it the baseline, call it the ball line, call it the plane line. You know, it just depends on who you talk to. And so one of the things we try to do is we try to get P1 to P2, this shaft is going to point at the baseline. So it's like I'm trying to point the hosel of the club is going to trace the baseline from P1 to P2. Okay, so the right arm's starting to flex. That's helping us get a little bit of depth. The body rotation's also helping us get a little bit of depth. So in your case, P1 to P2. You can call that P2.1. Pretty darn good. Then P2 to P3. You know, left arm's got some depth here. Left arm's in a little bit. You see Mac, P3. Now we start to point the butt of the club. So now we start to point the butt of the club back at the baseline. And then we continue to trace the baseline going up, 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 up. So you use the baseline as a reference point. And then, depending on where you are in terms of depth, it's going to change how you have to release it in the downstroke. So Mac's neutral. The butt of his club is right in the middle of his feet. So in your case, you're a little more upright, meaning you have less depth. And if this club shaft, instead of pointing over here, was pointing a little more here, you'd be in a much better spot coming down. So I'll show you that as well as we go, because you're not that far off. And so because you have a little less depth, when you use rotation, keep the left shoulder down, and then you start to move it back out of the way, the club gets too steep and too, the left arm is parallel to the baseline at P5. So you can do this a little bit better if we could get the left arm to match the shoulder plane a little bit better. And I'll show you that. Or we're going to just have to change where you're swinging post-impact. So look a little different. So Mac coming from P4 to P5, you'll see his P5 is a little bit more in and the shaft's a little bit shallower. So really it's like this much in terms of shaft plane, and you'd be right on the money. So we'll talk about how to get this thing in a little bit different position so that coming down, the left arm's a little bit more in, about 10 degrees more in. It's not totally parallel to our baseline here at P5. And then that'll allow you to actually use your rotation to swing to the left. In your case, because the shaft plane is a little bit steep and the left arm's a lot more out at P5, when you swing to the left, you're susceptible to a pull hook. So you guys are both in beautiful positions right here, but based on where the club came from, you're very susceptible to that pull hook. So the point I'm trying to make is, if we're a little steep coming down and we're a little too far out, when we swing to the left, it's going to be a little bit scary because you could go left of left from here. Now, if you weren't swinging to the left, if you were swinging more down the line or even to the right, you'd add a little bit of right side bend at this point and then start to release it a little earlier. You know, you wouldn't be as susceptible to the pull hook. The other thing with, if you're trying to swing to the left, you have to be really good at keeping the rotation up all the way to the finish. So you can see here, Mac's belt buckle is pointing left of the target, chest is pointing left of the target. Because if you don't keep the rotation up, you can't really swing to the left. So the main thing I'm going to talk about today is a little bit about your setup. We're going to get your stance a little bit stronger, stance a little bit wider. I'm going to show you how depth is created, because a lot of the depth comes from the right arm. The right arm flexing will give you more depth. So the sequencing of how the right arm flexes is going to control the depth. And then also the body's pivot is going to control the depth. But I'm also going to show you how to trace the baseline, because the baseline is a great reference point to have, because you're really not that far off. You're just a little bit off, and those pull hooks will go away pretty quickly if we tweak the plane just a little bit, or stop swinging or trying to swing to the left, because your golf swing is not quite built to swing to the left unless we get the shaft plane a little bit shallower. So again, a lot closer than you think. A lot of good stuff going on in this golf swing. So I'll try to clarify as best I can on camera, kind of the direction I'd like you to play around with. And yeah, well, let me know your thoughts from there. All right, thanks, Todd.